approximately 11 minutes from the venue. Emergency responders will be notified immediately in the event of an emergency. First line of communication will be cell phones. Then there's a landline available 400 feet away in the residence. Emergency evacuation doors in the front, back, and side of the facility. And parking lot access for emergency vehicles to enter and exit. And emergency vehicles can have access to the back of the venue. Entrances and roadways are plenty wide in compliance with regulations as well, or will be brought up to be in compliance with for getting in and out of the property. Both the fire mitigation and emergency plans are contained in the business plan of the applicant and are included as documents referenced in condition number 1. With regard to noise mitigation, music or any noise will be kept to state regulatory levels, which is measured 25 feet from the boundary lines following state statute for commercial venue, to be at or below 60 decibels from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or at or below 55 decibels from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. The applicants have positioned the dance floor on the east side of the building between a hillside and a barn as an effort to mitigate noise from the dance floor. And the next slide, these are distances to adjacent property owners and their homes. They range from 756 feet to 1,895 feet away from the venue. Condition number 5 of the conditions of approval makes these noise thresholds an explicit condition and requires the owner to keep a decibel log during events. Condition number 11 of the conditions of approval requires an annual review of this log. Thank you. A traffic study has been conducted, and the traffic impact study determined that the project will not increase the existing average daily trip volumes of the immediate roadway network by more than 20%. And I just wanted to note that the calculation for that was based on a CDOT wedding venue trip generation memo that uses 75% of the venue capacity for average daily trip calculations. There has been a lot of concern about dust generated by traffic going to and from the venue. So we spoke with the county engineer and the road and bridge foreman for the district. And they recommended an annual road bond with a 6.2% increase in cost per year for an annual application of mag chloride from 4200 road to the venue access point to help mitigate dust from traffic on Cottonwood Creek Road. Condition number 10 of the conditions of approval has been provided with an unspecified bond amount to mitigate this dust from traffic. Lastly, and probably most importantly, there's been a water supply issue that has presented challenges to this application. A plat note restriction exists on the current plat for the property, and it states that any further development on any lot will require the purchase of additional water taps, and septic systems and utilities must be constructed upon each lot, and said restriction must be removed by formal action of the Board of County Commissioners. Mad Dog Water Company serves the home on the property with domestic water, but does not issue commercial permits and will not permit the venue. So the proposed water supply for this venue, there are 2 proposed solutions. One is a commercial well, which they have a permit for on an adjacent parcel they own. And the other is a commercial tap. And there's been a letter provided by Deutsche Water, Domestic Water Company, they've agreed to provide that tap specifically to the event venue. So it's a commercial tap for the venue. The applicant proposes to haul water from one of these sources to a cistern that supplies the venue. Regarding the well, the Department of Natural Resources has issued the well permit for commercial purposes and does not have an issue with it being hauled to a nearby cistern. Regarding the water tap, Deutsche Water Company has, am I saying that correctly, Deutsche Water? Deutsche. Sorry. Deutsche Water Company has provided a letter agreeing to sell a commercial tap to the applicant specifically for the event venue. This next slide shows you a citation from our land use code and the regulations concerning cisterns. So the specific language regarding cisterns in land use code is provided here. It says a cistern may be allowed if the property is located within the service area of a purveyor and the purveyor agrees to allow a cistern. So Deutsche Water Company service area is wherever they wish to supply water to. And as they have stated very clearly that the tap would be to service the Hawk event venue, then that is where they have decided to serve water to. Cisterns also may be allowed where there is a permitted on-site water source, for example, a well or a spring. The Department of Natural Resources, I have a letter from them inquiring about whether or not a well that's on an adjacent parcel owned by the owner can supply water to a commercial event venue on another parcel owned by the well owner. And this is the letter I got. This is a quotation from Greg Powers. I consulted with our Denver office and they agree that it is in accordance with our regulations that water from an exempt commercial well can be used on a different parcel than the one where the well is located, so long as it is only used for the purposes allowed by the permit. So with all that said, staff finds that either proposed solution meets the requirements of the land use code and satisfies the plat restriction. Now, condition number 6 of the conditions of approval that have been proposed requires the applicant to provide adequate water supply that is sufficient in terms of quality, quantity, and dependability as evidenced. And they need to supply evidence of the water supply, and it must be approved by Delta County Public Health. Now, what I have following and slides following are the conditions of approval. Would you like me to go through all those? All right. So these are draft conditions of approval. The PC can amend these, edit them, or add to them, and these are their recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. Project 2463 is approved for an event venue that can host up to 35 events in one calendar year, with the max capacity being 250 people at the property located at 43440 Cottonwood Creek Road, Crawford, and then the parcel number. Operations shall be in accordance with the approved plans and supplemental documentation to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Development, including but not limited to the business plan that was provided by the applicant, which includes plans for the venue offerings, the food, the noise, the dust, the employees, the parking, the hours of operation, emergency management, lighting, and fire protection, and also their submitted site plan, which includes their parking plan. Any significant modification shall require an amendment to be considered by the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Number 2, plants identified through the Colorado Noxious Weed Act and the Delta County Noxious Weed List as undesirable and designated for management within the county shall be removed. Number 3, approved hours of operation are from 10 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. Again, I just put in what the applicant proposed. Friday through Sunday and 10 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. Friday through Sunday, and 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday. This includes setup and tear down. Music will be turned off or moved inside at 10 p.m. On-site overnight camping is prohibited. Number 4, outdoor lighting shall be hooded and shielded, cut off so as to not cast light or glare onto adjacent properties or upwards in a manner that dilutes the night sky. Number 5, the operation shall not exceed noise thresholds set by the statute. maximum permissible noise levels, which limits commercial use to a sound level of 60 decibels during the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 55 decibels during the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. at 25 feet from the property boundary. The owner shall maintain a decibel log, a noise mitigation record that is approved by county planning. Number 6, prior to operations, the owner shall provide evidence of adequate water supply that is sufficient in terms of quality, quantity, and dependability. Evidence of the water supply must be approved by Delta County Public Health. Number 6, prior to operations, the owner shall obtain final approval on an engineered on-site wastewater treatment system permit for the event venue. 8, prior to operations, the owner shall obtain approval from the county engineer for the venue access. 9, prior to operations, the owner shall obtain site construction approval according to the final approved site plan from county planning. Number 10, there shall be an annual road bond of, and I left the amount blank to be filled in, to cover the application of mag chloride to Cottonwood Creek Road starting from 4200 Road. And number 11, the owner shall submit an annual report to the county by January 15th of each year to include the number of events held, the number of attendees, review of the decibel logs, the noise mitigation records, responses to any complaints, any proposed changes to operations or site plans to ensure compliance with the permit. And this will also include an annual site visit to review the property and conditions of the permit issued. That concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Sean.
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, there's one more slide I forgot. So we recommend that this is not,
No,
yeah, this is
no,
not
this
the
is
right,
not the right one.
yeah, sorry,
Never mind.
that's a mistaken slide. And
You recommend that we approve, that we recommend
with
approval
conditions.
with the condition.
Yep.
I have a few questions for staff. I think probably some other folks do as well. Let's start just down the line. Commissioner Merrick, do you have any questions?
Sure. The amount of the bond for the road, you left it blank here, but you suggest 11,000. Did that come from a county engineer?
It did. If you go back a couple of slides, Angela, he actually worked out in a table a 6.2% increase annually from this year. Keep going back.
Yeah, you have a tab.
Well,
Back to the table.
yeah, can you go back to the table?
So $11,000 would cover, by his terms, one application of mag chloride.
Annual, yeah, one, right, from 4200 road to the access.
The traffic study, there were a couple of comments in here that challenged, questioned the way that the calculations were done. I had trouble following that. Did you go back and look at that?
I did, and the way that it's calculated is that there's 250 people event venue, 2.5 people per vehicle. And so that'd be 100 vehicles. And then the memo from CDOT accounts for 75% full capacity.
Right.
So that would be 75 trips. That's how they get the 75 trips to and from.
Okay, well, that's the way I followed it, but I was looking at these comments, it's kind of said there was a miscalculation, and I didn't see them myself. but-
I looked at it as a result of that comment as
Okay, so you're
well.
comfortable that this
Yeah,
traffic study was done properly with proper
with
calculations?
proper numbers, yeah.
All right, any other questions, Dave?
This Deitch Domestic Water Company, they have an unlimited service area, apparently.
I called the Department of Natural Resources to say, is there a definition of what a service area is? And basically, it comes down to where a water supplier wants to service water. And so there aren't maps of service areas necessarily.
Do you know whether they have any pipes delivering water to anywhere in this area?
I don't believe they do. I think that their infrastructure is not come into that area, but I don't know definitively. But if if they agree to supply water and they sell them a tap and they haul it off site to some other place, I don't know that that's, something that we regulate.
Well, the letter that I saw just said that they agreed to sell commercial tap.
Mhm.
I didn't see anything about that they agreed that they could haul it, and use the system.
Well, they did say that they were gonna issue the commercial tap specifically for the event venue, and they know where that's at, and they know where their water's at. So
How far away is I'm curious if you know
I don't,
where the water, it's on the Todd property somewhere, but how far away that is from the.
I don't know the answer to that.
Those are the only questions I have right now. With that.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Enhold. Do you have questions for staff?
For staff.
Commissioner Queen, Commissioner Bronis, Commissioner Gray.
You know it. How does a well permit, if they go that route, work on a different parcel if it changes ownership?
You could have an easement, that would guarantee access. Yeah,
Just
that's as far as I could answer.
that's a question I had. Were there any other plat notes that pertain? There was obviously a bunch of them. I couldn't see them on the plat. It wasn't quite detailed enough. Was there anything else pertaining to this? Figured you would have flagged it if it pertained to this.
Yeah,
application.
this was the one that, prevented a clear way forward,
Was the water.
was the water, yeah.
What were the other notes about?
A lot of them are pretty standard plat notes that, you can find in most plats at the same time.
Okay.
I couldn't speak off the memory what they all were.
But nothing to inhibit this.
No,
There was a comment about a cut slope stability requirement.
right, from the
From the
geological, yeah.
That's the first I've heard of anything of that nature. What is planning's, opinion of that?
I think that little plateau where they've already built the barn is a fairly stable area. I haven't put any conditions on, about mitigating any kind of possible landslide coming down from the nearby hill.
Do you remember back in the day, we used to get like soils and slopes? That was like probably one of the only pieces of information we used to get. And so I thought it was interesting that it was the first time I'd heard from the Geological Society saying anything like it, so. I was talking about the Geologic Society made a comment of a cut slope stability requirement. I wanted to know if the county had any opinion of that, and it sounds like there's no requirement as of yet to put it as a condition, so.
Correct.
What is the burden on the county for tracking bonds? Is it fairly easy?
It's fairly easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have very many of them.
Right. But it's money, so.
Mhm.
And then were you at the neighborhood meeting?
I wasn't.
I think those are all my questions for staff.
All right, Commissioner Nelson? No questions? Okay. Oh, yeah.
On the plat note, it seemed like it was more conditional if the property was being split, that note would apply.
It was if there was any further development. They needed to have a water tap and OWTS septic system.
Had some questions. I think they were mostly covered. One question was the hours of operation. Those are pretty significantly different than the application we recommended last week. Was that just based on the business plan? Was there any discussion about amending those hours of operation? I'm not sure what public will have to say about that, but
The application we heard the other week, I think the applicant applied for up to 10 PM and then that was what the PC also recommended. We don't have any parameters for hours necessarily. We do for noise,
yeah.
but not for operations.
Yeah. And then the decibel log, that's something we haven't really seen before. Who will conduct that review? How, this kind of conditions a lot more kind of review than a lot of applications we see. Who is responsible for handling those?
The owner applicant would be the one maintaining the log
Uh-huh.
and with some. And it needs to be approved by planning department, so we need some way to verify that the decibel readings were actually taken during an event, and then we'll review that annually. And our
Okay.
code compliance officer would review that annually.
Okay. The mag chloride is gonna start at 4200 road or end of 4200 road. Is that where gravel
Yes,
starts? Just curious, in general, we often see a condition about noxious weeds. It seems like there is already something in the land use code about that. Is there a reason
Yes.
that we're specifically conditioning that?
it's just very typical for us to put it in the conditional use permits as an explicit condition.
Okay. Those are my questions for now. We will invite the applicant up, if you can come up to this front table. And we'll give you a chance to add anything you'd like to add. And also a chance for the commission members to ask you specific questions pertaining to the property. If you could introduce yourself,
Do I need to turn this on? Is it on?
it's on.
I'm Robert Hawk. I guess they sent me up here by myself. Oh, there, my wife came. We live at 7979 Crawford Road, just down the road. Mr. Gardner kind of took the words out of my mouth as far as stuff that I was gonna address. There are a couple other things that might come up that I wanted to speak about. One is the conservation easement that my parents have on the property. And I don't know what research planning has done with that. We have talked to them multiple times. They are fully aware of exactly what it is. There's no issues. It's outside, it's in the building envelope. There's no issues if we were to use the well. We do have some documentation for that. They don't have a problem with that. They're fully aware of what exactly it is and what it's for. They have been there. They unload their four-wheeler to go look around. They're fully aware of all of that. Some stuff that came up, one thing with the neighborhood meeting, concern and, with our list of events that we might host there. And it was left kind of open-ended because it's very difficult to say every single thing that might happen because it's impossible, so we did leave it kind of open-ended. We never have had intentions to have music festivals, concerts all day, either one of those things all day long. So I don't know, we're totally fine with, I don't know if that's a condition, we add it to our plan, our contract, whatever, prohibit it. I don't know, but we would like to do that. We have no intention of doing those kinds of things there, the music festivals and the concerts. Oh, and then another one with alcohol, we are not supplying it. We talked about it. It is a concern. It's a concern for us too. We will have a representative there, either our family or somebody that we trust and train or however it may be. My parents live right there. We don't want anybody going beyond their limits with that stuff. We talked about it. They want to bring beer and wine, that's fine. Any hard alcohol, we are gonna put in the contract, they have to have a TIPS certified server serve the hard alcohol. Once again, I don't know how that goes into our business plan, or this is stuff that came up after we did the neighborhood meeting and discussed, and you guys already had everything. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, start this one. I guess, I think a lot of us had a question about exactly where the water would be picked up from. You know, if you go the route of the commercial tap, how far is the hauling distance and about how much water do you anticipate needing to haul to operate?
It's,
your-
are you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's 12 minutes away. It's 5 miles. We have property from permission from a landowner. We've talked to Deitch Water Company. They will let us the main line runs right through there. They will grant us access. We'll put a meter right there. We'll haul it from there. Our septic system is based on max capacity of 250 people, which I don't think we're gonna have 30 type events with, I mean, some of these are gonna be graduation parties and stuff of that nature, but based on that, it's 5 gallons per person. It's 1,250 gallons per event. And that would be at the max. And the tap is for 10,000 gallons a month. And most of these will just be, you know, weekends, three to 4 weekends a month. So we should half.
Right, those are my questions. Jake, do you have any?
Do you have any wiggle on the hours of operation? Did any of that come up at the neighborhood meetings?
Yes. We tried to kind of compensate with that, with moving it inside. What's that? At 10, you know, music is shut off or has to be inside. And honestly, we've been to a couple weddings this summer and it's super hot outside. They're at beautiful venues. They've chosen to do it inside because it's so hot. We just didn't want to limit, you know, where it's at. That's the allure of it, is kind of being able to dance outside and things of that nature. As far as wiggle room, I'm very cautious saying that because when I say that, it takes a big dive the other way.
So you're pretty much decided you're not gonna use the well, you are gonna use Deitch's.
Either one.
You haven't decided yet.
It probably the Deitches, I mean, I don't know what the rules are. We'd like to keep it open to have either one. But if we had to pick one, probably the Deitch water tap. The well is not drilled yet.
I think that's all I have.
Right, Lane, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Well, I read the whole packet, 97 pages, and you seem to have a pretty solid business plan. I don't see where water's an issue. You know, you either go with a water company or you can drill the well, so either way, it's handled. And I think you did a good job putting your plan together.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions, on your hours of operation, so 12:30. Monday through Saturday, right?
No, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so 12:30 on Sunday, I view that as 12:30 on Monday. Is that correct? Do you intend to have events Sunday that will carry?
I'm glad you're looking at my wife and not you. You confused me. You were saying Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night.
Yeah, so if we had an event on Sunday and it went until 12:30, yes, so I have wiggle room on that. We
I
don't.
just,
we
I think
can-
it want to be something that we clarify.
Yeah.
If there's gonna be an event that begins on Sunday and goes at 12:30 AM on Monday, that maybe that's just clarified in the hours of
Right.
operation. With your conversation with the fire chief, did he come out and look at the at where you're gonna have your venue?
Not yet,
Not yet.
yes.
I'd be curious to see what his opinion is of the ingress egress of the turn radius, if they need to get a truck in there, things like that, just to make sure they feel like they're gonna have sufficient room in the event that they need to get a fire truck in there. I think that's something I'd like to see his input on.
Yeah, now we planned on, that was one of the things. I mean, just come look at the whole thing and tell
Yeah.
us what you, obviously. We might do it before and after because it's not all built. The access and everything, it's not built yet.
Have you guys thought about having some type of Wi-Fi access that would stabilize cell phone use in the event of emergency so that the need to go to the residence 400 feet away wasn't as probable?
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably have Starlink there, but, I think the only,
I think they all work.
I think they all
We
work
have
right there.
Verizon, we have Sprint.
I know AT&T work there,
Yeah, I think.
they all,
Street.
it will at the barn. But yeah, we'll probably have Wi-Fi there.
I don't want to beat a dead horse on the water thing, but has Guy Water Company implicitly stated that they're good with you using your well and cistern and not purchasing the commercial tap? Or are they requiring the purchase of commercial tap?
Well, I would probably do one or the other. I
So-
wouldn't do both.
Right, so if you decided not to purchase the commercial tap, they're fine with you since you're within their area of service of having your well and using that for this purpose.
Yeah, the DNR wouldn't issue the permit if that was an issue.
Right, okay.
And we have the permit.
Last question, have you thought about putting any conditions in your contract specifically pertaining to the use of alcohol to cover some of the concerns that came up in your meeting?
Just the tips certified and, we don't condone it and, we won't have a problem calling the sheriff's department and telling them every time we have an event and telling them to park at the end of our driveway with the checkpoint. I mean, we don't, we have other land there. We know what happens. And people run through the fences and there's cattle and everything else, but that is a difficult one. I understand it. It's very hard to, there's the other side of it too, like what happened on the 4th of July with everybody. It's impossible to regulate. We will be there. Like I said, with the hard alcohol thing, and weddings generally are, I'm gonna quote something that somebody else said the other day, they're usually fairly respectful events. And like I said, we're gonna be there, so somebody will be there.
I don't have any.
Lance?
Yeah, I just have a couple, thanks.
Mm.
First, I just want to confirm it's 35 events a year. That's all you were looking for. Somewhere I read something about 25.
I went,
Ones or something, or.
there was a couple reiterations of the traffic study. So that's probably why you've seen it back and forth. And then the breakdown with the traffic study was you could do so many this size, so many this size, so many this size, so many this size. And then it just seemed very confusing. We're like, how many at max capacity? You can, to fall under that 20%, you could break it out and, for lack of a better term, get more events. We're fine with if it's 25 people at a graduation party, it's an event, the same as 150 at a wedding. So that's where that came from.
35 cap. What do you?
Max of 35, yeah.
Right. And then excuse me, my voice. Were there any other concerns that came up in the neighborhood meeting that we're gonna hear about that you haven't addressed yet?
Not that aren't kind of answered in our business plan, or I can't think of anything off the dust and noise and things of that nature,
Okay, thank you.
but we'll see.
David?
Thank you.
Hours of operation, what I saw in the business plan that it includes setup and tear down. So if you say 12:30, then that's people are out the door with their equipment and everything. So the music would stop 30 minutes before at least, or.
Yeah, whatever they need to do to be gone out of our driveway by 12:30 off the premises.
Okay. I'm confused about this water situation. So Deitch Domestic Water Company agrees to sell you a commercial tap. And then you get a piece of paper that says you have a tap, then you just go up and fill up your tank somehow?
Yeah, we would put a meter in on the main line that obviously so they could bill us,
Okay.
and then we would just haul the water.
So let's go back to this well permit that you have. Where is that located? The location of the well in relation to the event center?
It's on the other parcel that we own that's just split by the county road.
across. the county
It's
road.
800, I can't remember when I wheeled it, 800-ish feet.
Okay. So would it be possible you drill a well and you run a pipeline?
I know a guy that could probably do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would, if we went the well route, that's what we would probably, we wouldn't haul
Well, it's only
it.
800 feet and it's from adjoining properties.
Yeah,
So there
it's
shouldn't
split
be
by the
any
county
issue
road.
about easements or anything like that. We own both properties. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
Are there producing wells in the area?
yes.
So that's probably likely that yours will produce.
Yeah, there's one less than 1,000 feet away that's potable water, and there was an existing residential well on that parcel that was used for quite a few years.
So the cistern, what size of cistern were you talking? I didn't see it in the plan.
I think they're 1,900 gallons.
Okay. That's what you were planning to use?
Yeah,
And you could use the well and fill the cistern as well.
yes, I think we would have to want to do that
Okay.
anyways, just to make sure that there's water there.
So my concern with the cistern in a commercial operation is you got people going in and out of the bathroom, somebody leaves the sink running or the toilet flushes or it sticks or whatever, and there goes your cistern.
Mhm,
Halfway through the night, you gotta run out of water.
right.
Think about that?
Yeah, we planned on having it full and then having a 500 gallon tank there.
Well, I thought we were talking 1,900 gallons.
Well, no, have the cistern full and then the tank that we use to fill it,
Okay.
have
I
it
see,
full.
I see. You're gonna-
Not this,
Okay.
yeah, the whole tank, I guess you can say.
Okay.
What kind of capacity is the other well close to you producing, do you know? Gallons per minute wise?
Get your well doing. Roger, how much is
Yeah.
your well?
How-
didn't hear what he
It asked how our well is doing.
Doing fine. Very well. How many gallons per minute does it produce? A little over a quarter minute.
And then, is there a reason there was a well permit that was issued on the adjoining property, but they wouldn't issue a permit on this property? Is it too small?
Yes.
Okay,
Do you want me to elaborate on that?
I think,
I believe
I
it's
think I
in,
understand that. Yeah, just wanted to clarify.
it's a plat restriction because they won't issue it with a subdivision clause attached to your property.
Okay, gotcha. All right, any other questions for the applicant before we move on to public comment? Okay. We have a lot of folks in the room, a lot of folks signed up here. I'm just gonna go down the list, doing my best to read your handwriting. If I skip someone because I couldn't read their handwriting, there will be an opportunity at the end to add on or raise your hand, say you think that was you. We're gonna keep it to 3 minutes per comment. And is there anyone on Zoom that wants to comment? Do we know yet?
Sure.
Okay, we'll add those at the end as well. This, and just a reminder for everyone, this planning commission reviews these applications and then makes a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, who makes the final decision on the application. We can recommend to approve just as the staff has presented it. We can recommend to approve with additional conditions that we add on. We can recommend to deny the project, or we can recommend to table it for some reason. So that's just a little bit about how the process works. Again, if things don't go your way, you have one more chance to argue your case in front of the Board of County Commissioners. All right, we will start with Thad Schroeder. If you can come up to the chair and introduce yourself and your address.
Thad Schrader, 43799 Cottonwood Creek Road. The Hawks recently held a neighborhood meeting that honestly should have happened over a year ago. They brought friends and family to defend the proposed event venue and to remind us how long they've lived in the area, longer than most of us. But that shouldn't matter. The majority of the people who support this venue don't even live near it. It's easy to say you're in favor when you don't have to deal with the noise, traffic, dust, or potential drop in property values. We keep hearing how hard the Hawks have worked and how this venue would help them slow down and leave a legacy. But that's not a reason for approval of a commercial operation. Many of us have worked hard too, so we could enjoy peace and quiet. Wanting to pass something down to your kids doesn't justify disrupting your neighborhood. Many farms and ranches are passed down to the next generation all the time without an event venue involved. Honestly, this process has been difficult because the Hawks have done everything backwards. They built a venue without the proper permits or even domestic water secured. I run the Mad Dog Water Company, and we were never even contacted before they started building. They assumed they could use water from a small fragile system, again, with no consideration for neighbors or the community. If the Hawks would have planned better early on, they would have realized water was going to be an issue. They say this has been in the works for 2 or 3 years, yet the water plan is still uncertain and permits weren't filed. That's not just poor planning, that's acting like rules don't apply. Lastly, a simple search will show Delta County already has plenty of event venues. There's no shortage. But there is a shortage of quiet, peaceful places like ours. This venue simply doesn't belong in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica Schrader?
Hi. My name is Veronica Schrader. I live at 43770 Cottonwood Creek Road. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Appreciate it. I have a few things. First of all, at last week's neighborhood meeting, I was under the impression that the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the event venue, and there indeed was some of that. However, the tone quickly shifted toward what felt like a scolding from the friends of the Hawks that were in attendance. I heard a lot that day about how you people should know your place, that they have every right to do whatever they want on their property, that the neighbors aren't gonna tell us how to run our business, and that I should be ashamed for being concerned about how this venue might affect my daily life. What I did not hear was any willingness to compromise when it comes to the hours of operation, the outdoor dance floor, or much concern for how the venue will impact the neighbors who actually live nearby. Which brings me to my main concerns. We live in a very rural, quiet area, and this venue would definitely change that. I've heard the music and the DJ inside my home from the tent weddings that they have had in their hayfield. This venue is much closer to the nearby homes. I did a Google search and it says that the average decibel level of music at a wedding reception is between 90 and 105 decibels. So they can ask the guests to keep it down, but you know, it's a party and it's supposed to be fun and they're loud. The hours of operation, I feel, are very excessive. I work 2 jobs here in the Valley, one with the Delta County School District. Get up early and parties until 11 PM on weeknights and 12:30 AM on a Sunday night. Is just not fair to any of the neighbors, let alone those of us that need to get up and go to work the next day. Next, the risk of fire in our area is very real. There was just a fire in the Crawford area last week. We have one narrow road that goes in and out. So in the event of some kind of an emergency, extra vehicles on the road could prevent emergency responders from getting in, make it difficult to evacuate, and it could put lives at risk, I feel. Lastly, I watched the planning commission meeting on June 25th while the Davis event venue was being discussed. It was a little bit different situation. The Davises were the outsiders and the locals were there speaking out against their venue for the very same reasons that I am presenting to you this evening, and I'm sure others will as well. I can only come to one conclusion, that nobody, not the longtime residents nor the newer residents, want an event venue plopped down in their quiet backyards. So I urge you to keep the promise to protect the character of our rural neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Brittany Kendall? Brittany, can you introduce yourself and your address, please?
My name is Brittany Kendall and I live at 42218 D Road in Crawford. Hi, my name is Brittany Kendall and I'm a small business owner in Paonia providing aesthetic and nail services. I began my business in 2019, starting with wedding hair and makeup services for friends and family. But as the years go on, I service clients from around the valley as well as those visiting our beautiful area. Although we travel to provide hair and makeup services, having this venue in the area would not only increase business regarding wedding services, it also allows for more business for aesthetics and nails. Brides prepare days, Brides prepare days, if not months in advance for their wedding, whether it is for maintenance facials, waxing services, nails, or spray tans, all services which I provide. By having this local venue, I am able to provide these services and earn thousands of dollars in half the time it would take working normal business hours. By adding this wedding venue to our valley, not only am I able to pocket more money from wedding services due to less travel, but also to grow my small aesthetics and nail business I have worked so hard to grow. Weddings are the foundation of my business, and by adding this venue, it can flourish into something much bigger. And for that possible opportunity, I would be incredibly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Dennis Dermus.
Dennis Dermus, 2997 North Road. I'm a business owner in the valley and welcome this type of business because it brings people from outside the area that would come and use my business. We provide rentals for summer, winter sports. We provide hunting and fishing supplies. People that are visiting the valley would definitely be in the Hotchkiss area, and we welcome that type of thing. I grew up on that Mesa, Missouri Flats, where the venue is. I thought we were gonna have my son's wedding there this year, but that didn't happen. We found someplace else. And that wasn't what we planned to do because they're the most reasonable place in the valley to have a wedding. So it was very nice to have them. I welcome this venue as a business and in the valley to see more tourism come to our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Carla Dermus?
I have not actually.
Okay, you don't need to speak. Okay, thank you. Tom
Cloud.
McLeod, all right, come on up.
Business on the loud.
You only got 3 minutes, Tom.
That's good. I'll take all of them, I guess. Tom McLeod. I'm from up on the north end of the valley, Crawford, and my place is on the Black Mesa. I have a wedding venue. I've got several. Can I give you a P.O. box in Crawford? 132 Crawford. That's funny. Anyway, I am here on behalf of the Hawks. I have a wedding venue, have had for many years, and I have neighbors. And I live on a dusty road. And I have lots of conservation easements on my property. I don't have any issues with having easements. We've had a successful venue for over 30 years. And I think it'd be a beautiful place to have a wedding venue on Missouri Flats. This commission has approved other venues where neighbors have disputed. So I hope you make the judgment call in favor of the Hawks. This would be a good place for weddings. Thank you very much.
John. There's John that wants to speak. Sure, come on up. 12996, you said?
42996, John Irvin, 42996 Needle Rock Road. That's practically my backyard there. I'm one of those nasty over the ridgers that was being cussed at the neighborhood event because apparently we don't have a say because we can't hear it, but I'm here to tell you that western wall of that rock is an amazing reflector panel. So we hear pretty much whatever goes on either side, especially when it's high decibel. Now, Veronica told you about the decibels of the music at the venue while that's going on. And there's been some discussion about the control of that. But what I didn't ever hear anything about, and what has really concerned me from the beginning, is the decibel noise from tire traffic on a gravel road. If you'll look it up, normal tire traffic on an asphalt road is between 67 and 77 decibels. When you put that same tire on a gravel road, add 4 decibels, and when you go past 7 p.m., the perception of the decibel level, add 10 more. So we're talking 90 decibels after 7 p.m. Now you can look that up. You can go ahead and look that up. That's all in free public information. But what we've got here is a situation where as people are leaving at 11 o'clock at night on a work night, I just had a 90 decibel sound go roaring past my house. Now granted, the study was done at 30 miles an hour. That's about what most people would drive out there. But we've had complaints from some of our neighbors that people were roaring past their house at 50 and 60 miles an hour down a gravel road late at night. Now do the math, folks. Now that may sound great to some of these people who live somewhere else and are talking about, yeah, I grew up there on the Mesa. Well, way back then, maybe it was quiet. 35 years ago, August 6th, my family moved up there. 35 years ago, August 6th. One of the biggest reasons my family moved up there was for the silence in my backyard, right there in that picture. And that was a big thing to my dad because he was a school teacher. Now, and back in 2013, I finished 35 years of service to my country, Air Force service. I was around a lot of noise, people, a lot of noise. And I went to my home up there in Smith Fork Valley because it's quiet, it's nice. And now I'm facing for the advantage of one family that claims they've been there forever. You know what? My family's been there damn near as long. And for that one family, you're going to destroy one of the most valuable assets in America today, and that is silence. Find me a place where you can have silence. We have it there, please. It's your job as government representatives to protect us from people who would destroy our advantage for the advantage of one family.
Thank you, John. Is there another John that wants to speak? All right, come on up.
My name's John Caven. I live at 37892 Linden Road, Crawford. It's about 4 miles east of the Hawks. I've known them for 40 years. I watched them raise a great family. You've already heard enough about how hardworking they are. I'm here for them, to support them. I'm also here for every American that owns a piece of property. They should have the right to do what they want. If you don't like what your neighbor does, I understand it. You get 2 choices, put trees up or move. But every American man and woman has a right when they buy that property to do what they want. And that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. CJ and Tanya. Cowie, thank you.
I'm Tanya Cowie. I live 756 feet from the closest to the venue, but I'm actually reading this for Curiel Heisler Duffy. She was
Okay, 1 second, Tanya, can you state your address? for the
oh,
record,
sorry,
please?
43184 Cottonwood Creek Road. So this is from Curiel Duffy, co-founder of Paradise on the Hanger, Coltern Coffee House, the Hawaiian Shirt Shop, Camp Rock, and the founding program administrator for the Delta County Meth Task Force. Dear representatives, I write to respectfully request your consideration as a 26-year resident of Delta County and committed Colorado citizen regarding the barn at Hawk Ranch. Delta County residents have been working from home since the county was established in 1883. We started as farmers, ranchers, dairymen, and the list goes on. Working from home has always been and remains a way of life in our frontier rural communities. It's how residents survive in a place that's remote with limited resources. I moved to Missouri Flats outside of Crawford in 1986. At that time, every adult I can think of worked 2 or more jobs, with 1 or more being from home. They were the North Fork neighbors, farriers, wild game processors, electricians, the list goes on. Time has moved on and life in Delta County continues to transform. We now have wine producers, CBD producers, a developing music venue, big B's, internationally known authors, artists, and so much more. There has historically been a divide between farmers, ranchers, and newcomers. However, 3 things that bring us together and for which we share in common value are the land, the water, and the wildlife. People who choose to live in unincorporated Delta County seek a certain quality of life and experience. They appreciate getting off the pavement, the wilderness is adjacent, and the freedom to live life on their property on their own terms according to their needs and values. People who choose to live in a gated community anywhere in the U.S. are choosing to have a very defined protocol and structured way of life, one that represents their goals and needs. Unincorporated Delta County living is just not that. Ever since we can remember, the Foster Farms chicken farms were a point of contention. However, this is an agricultural, farming, and ranching community. It's our history and heritage, and it's definitive to the way of life. No one wants to live next to the pig farm either, but we all love bacon. Historically, we've often watched newcomers come and suddenly want to shut the gate behind them and change the very things that drew them to life in Delta County. Change is inevitable. Communities and life are always in transition. This county has gone from being primarily agriculture to ag and mining to now absorbing the changes brought on by technology and tourism and hospitality. Regardless, the people who live here still often have to work multiple jobs to survive. The pioneering Hawk family has consistently served the farming and ranching community of Delta County with commitment and distinction. America is the land of the free, and landowners in Delta County are free to use their land according to the defined laws of Delta County, Colorado, and the U.S. Constitution. The Hawk family holds the legal right as U.S. citizens to use their property to generate livelihood and a legacy. As a great-granddaughter of pioneers who opened the first bakery in Glenwood Springs and herself, a 26-year resident landowner in Delta County, my commitment to the legacy of the highest and best for the future of Delta County residents' wildlife persists. Please support the Hawks family right to use their property per their plans, as it is their legal right. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Right, TW and Christy Stites. Hi.
Christy Stites, 37248 Stucker Mesa Road. Good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak. As Delta County grows, we face an important challenge: how to balance the progress with preservation of our agricultural way of life. The fact is, sustaining a family ranch on the western slope has become challenging each year. The rising cost of land, building costs, and the expense of operations have outpaced what many ag producers can maintain without adapting. Many agricultural families, like ourselves, have to diversify, adding things like agritourism, vacation rentals, event spaces. These additional revenue streams help keep land in production and families rooted in agriculture. They also generate new income for Delta County by bringing in visitors who spend money at local businesses, restaurants, and lodging. Allowing limited use of their property gives the Hawks a way to continue stewarding their land while adapting to the realities of modern agriculture. Supporting their requests isn't just about one family. It's about keeping agriculture viable in Delta County and strengthening the long-term health of our community. Thank you.
Danielle De Fiore.
Hello, I'm at 15368 Pitkin Road. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As a wedding photographer for the last 16 years in the state, I've had the privilege of witnessing thousands of celebrations through my friends and my families and gatherings unfold across our state. I've also witnessed something equally beautiful and profound that impacts the wedding venues have on our community. When a couple chooses to celebrate their special day at a local venue, they're not just booking the space, but they're investing in our community. The community's future as well. I've watched as venues become the heartbeat of a local economic activity and create a ripple effect that touches every corner of our area. From my lens, I see the scope, the full scope of the impact. Every wedding I photograph involves dozens of local businesses, from florists who create the arrangements to caterers who source, local farms, musicians who fill the space with joy, hairstylists, rental companies, transportation services. We're all part of an interconnected web of local commerce. A single wedding can generate thousands of dollars in local spending. Multiply that by a dozen events a venue hosts annually, and you're looking at a significant economic impact. I've seen small businesses thrive because they are part of this wedding ecosystem. What makes venues truly special is their dual purpose. Yes, they host weddings, but they're also serving as a community center. I photographed charity galas, high school reunions, corporate events, family celebrations in these same spaces. They become woven into the fabric of our community's most important moments. Wedding venues put our community on the map. Couples travel from neighboring cities to celebrate, bringing family and friends with them. These visitors stay in our hotels, eat in our restaurants, and shop in our stores, and they often fall in love with our area and come back to celebrate those anniversaries. As someone who has made my living documenting stories in these spaces, I can tell you that wedding venues are far more than just event spaces. They're economic engines, respectfully, community anchors and symbols of our area's commitment to celebrate the togetherness. When we support wedding venues, we're supporting our neighbors, our local economy, and our community's future. We're creating spaces where love, joy, and community intersect, and that is something we're celebrating and supporting. Thank you.
Jenna Zeldin.
Oh,
That was a really good throw.
My name's Jenna Zeldentice, and I live at 42647 Mule Deer Road in Crawford. It was mentioned earlier from a public member that this venue will only be an advantage to one family, and I'm going to tell you how that's very untrue. The family behind me has been an incredible help and support to the Pee Wee program that I am in charge of. I've been in charge of our basketball and volleyball program for Hotchkiss, Crawford, and some Paonia members for 8 years now. And the family behind me has been able to donate jerseys, support kids, and help kids that maybe aren't able to afford registration fees for these athletics. They've been nothing but supporters. They've been doing that for years. I've known them since I was a kid myself. And Daryl and Christy Hawk are a part of the booster club there. And that's their main gig, is they want to be able to support the community, and they have. And with this venue, I mean, obviously it's beautiful. A lot of us are raising our children there in Crawford, like I am, with the rustic and the Western roots, and to be able to have a venue, to be able to celebrate big things and lifetime memories. It's a huge deal, but I also know that they'll continue to pay it forward, whether it be to continue with the sports programs or 4-H members that we have at our local yearly fair at the sale there, whatever it may be. But I promise it's not just an advantage to one family, it's for the entire community, and I thank them for it.
Thank you. Lacey Stockton.
So my name's Lacey Stockton. I'm the owner, my husband and I, of the Bell S Ranch. We are at 31779 Lizia Road in Hotchkiss. We support the Hawk Ranch wedding venue because we feel like it will help our business expand, it will help the local economy, and it will strengthen our local community. We do commercial wagon rides with our horses, and we have not gotten into weddings yet, and this is a really great opportunity. These people are really great. We've met with them to expand our business into some wedding type carriage rides and things. Besides that, we also have an Airbnb. I know there are several of them in the Delta County area. People will be looking for lodging for these weddings. There aren't many hotels that will support that part of the community. Also, you know, local restaurants, tourist shops, things like that. We're turning to tourism. That's how us locals are surviving here. The other thing, my husband and I just moved here last May, a year ago in May, and we moved here because of the community. We know people here support each other. We know people here want to get to know each other, and we value relationships here in this county, and that's why we ended up in Delta County. I've noticed, I grew up in a place a lot like this. A lot of people moved in with money. And I went to my 10-year high school reunion and nobody lives there anymore because we can't afford it. And if you don't give these people that live here already an opportunity to think outside of a box and use their ranch for a wedding venue, because growing cattle and sheep and hay no longer will support a ranch, you're gonna lose these ranches, and they will probably go to the millionaires that buy property like this because it's in a beautiful area. And those people do not support community very well. They're here not all the time. And they don't really go into town and support local businesses. They don't bring in business. They don't bring in commerce. But the local people do, the people that are here to run businesses like us with our horses and things. So, you know, I feel like the Hawks are very much, they're seeking to share their beautiful ranch with the public now. And I feel like that's what Crawford and the North Fork Valley are really about. We're here to benefit other people and things like that. That's really what makes this area priceless, is the people here. And if you want to keep people like us here, I think you should allow people like the Hawks to do businesses like this. Thanks.
If I skipped Danielle Cluding. Oh. Okay. And Sean Stratton?
I live with her.
Okay. Tim Austin.
I'm Tim Austin. I live at 41339 Highway 133 in Paonia. I'd like to express my support for Hawks. I went to high school with Daryl and Christy. They've been important and great members of our community for many, many years. I find it fascinating that people who move in here, they move to this place because they love it, because we've got a wonderful culture here and wonderful neighborhoods. And then they want to tell us what to do, and they want to change it, and they want to tell us what we need to do to make it a better place, just like the crappy place they moved from. If the place they moved from was so wonderful that it stayed there, but they move here and tell us how to live. One thing I've not heard is any gratitude from these people around the Hawks. They put their land in a conservation easement, which greatly helps the value of their properties. And nobody's showing any gratitude for that whatsoever. They get open space near your place. You get with lots of animals coming through. You get a farm that's preserved, and I don't hear any gratitude from these people. That's kind of disappointing, quite frankly. One thing I would, on a little higher level, that one thing that it's been impressed on me, that we're in a complaint-based system. When you're in a complaint-based system, you are going to draw lots of complainers, and that's what we're starting to see in our valley. If that's what you want this place to be like, keep working on this complaint-based system. We need a better system. This is not working. People who move in, their complaints are reacted to and with the utmost aggressive enforcement. And landowners that have been here forever, their complaints are ignored to a huge degree. I think we need to, the Planning Commission, I'm hoping, will work on this and help to, this complaint-based system is ripping our county apart. I know neighbors that this land use code is pitting neighbor against neighbor, and it's not a pretty thing at all. So I support the Hawks. I hope they succeed at this. They are great community members. This will be a wonderful venue and will be a great addition to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Kay Weissman.
Hi, I'm Kay Wiseman. I'm at 42374 Cottonwood Creek Road. A couple of things. I don't think the traffic study included the amount of traffic going back and forth during setup and breakdown of the wedding venues. During their unpermitted events the last couple of years, it's just constant. On the day of the wedding, the day after the wedding, it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all day. And then the box trucks, there's box trucks with the chairs and all the setup and all the decorations, and those are back and forth all day. So I don't think that was included in the traffic study. And then the second point I want to make is Needle Rock Natural Area is a critical conservation managed area by the BLM. It is critical habitat for raptors, bald eagles, golden eagles, and the peregrine falcon. Having a wedding venue right next to, at the base of Needle Rock, it kind of goes against conservation altogether. They claim they care about conservation because they put their land in conservation. But if you're gonna have a wedding venue or concerts or big music events next to a critical habitat for raptors, it kind of goes against conservation in my mind. The Needle Rock pipeline construction was halted for a month and a half for conservation during the nesting season. Even though there's not a nest there currently, it's still critical habitat. And I believe there was a big contention about the American flag flying after the 4th of July on Needle Rock because of nesting. And so it seems like if we care that much for this critical habitat, we shouldn't have a wedding venue right at the base of it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Johnson.
Jensen. I live at 42374 Cottonwood Creek Road, along with Kay. So we're along the Cottonwood Creek Road, the section that's gravel that would be get sprayed with mag chloride going forward. And during the past weddings, we have had sleepless nights. We live in an older home. It's built in about 1910, 1911, something like that. Our bedroom is about 40 feet from the road. And every time, it's a wedding event that ends at 12:30. Yeah, they need to leave the parking lot, but then it will extend past that 12:30 deadline. But, times change. I don't know that, that maybe that's on us, but I guess I've thought about this quite a bit. And what I keep coming back to is I stand at the corner of 4300 Road and Cottonwood Creek Road. And it just seems like the neighbors, we're a little farther away. We're approximately about 2,500 feet to 3,000 feet away. But the near neighbors, it just looks like that barn is just right on top of them. And, I guess, that you see these distances, they are quite a few number of feet. But finger one neighbor in particular, the Shelleys are, they share a subdivision with the Hawks. And I realize the plat notes don't necessarily don't disallow for this wedding venue. But in my mind, if you buy a home in a subdivision, and these parcels are large, they are, the Hawks parcel, like they said, is 63 acres. But I think there's a lot of people in this room tonight that live in a subdivision that have the expectation that their neighbor in the subdivision isn't going to open up a wedding venue. And so I think that's the decision. The basis for your decision tonight should be just based on that fact. Thank you.
Thank you. JP Coates.
Hi, John Paul Coates, 14751 F Road in Delta, Colorado, 55-year resident of Colorado, Delta County. And there have been a lot of changes come into this county. I've known the Hawks for those 55 years that they've known me. And they've always been supportive of the community. If any of these neighbors called the Hawks to ask them for something, I'll bet the Hawks would be there to help them. And one of my boys was fortunate enough to get married on this venue. It's a beautiful venue. If anybody in this room wants their children to get married and wanting a venue that's against it or for it, you can't find a more beautiful venue and something that's gonna support this county. And I'm all for it. And that's what I got to say. If you don't like dirt roads, move to pavement.
Michelle Jensen?
My name is Michelle Jensen. I live at 3497 Stearman Road Lane in Crawford. And I'm a part owner of a property on Cottonwood Road. I went to the neighborhood meeting and it really upset me because there was a real almost effort to make a division between people. We were told how wonderful the Hawks were, how wonderful the old timers were to the newcomers, and how the newcomers came in and bought property with money they earned from outside of the area, and wasn't that terrible? And then in the next breath, it was, we need to have commercial enterprise here and bring money in. I hear of the business owners here who talk about how wonderful it will be to have commercial enterprise brought in due to this venue. But what I would say to that is, how many of them live right next to the venue? You can't make sacrificial lambs of the people who own property there. And it's going to have a huge impact on those people's property and lives. I just think that the picture right behind you shows the iconic nature of this area. And it's really not one meant to have a commercial enterprise. And something that really bothers me is that in the future, if this becomes a huge enterprise with a lot of traffic, those roads will not support that, especially the narrow winding road that goes right to the Hawks property. I'm concerned that the county will have to improve those roads in the future. And that, I don't know that the neighbors have considered this, but it may include a property taking in order to widen those roads. I think that's something that we ought to be concerned about. And another thing that I'm concerned about is being told that you can have a sheriff park there in order to watch for drunken driving and, late craziness. Why should the county have to designate a specific one sheriff for that purpose for one commercial enterprise? I don't think that's right. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Michelle. Liz Giedrich? Oh, boy. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Liz Heydrich. I live at 41333 D Road in Crawford, Colorado. I'm a real estate agent. I wrote a few comments. I'll just start with apologies to all my friends, old and new, for any feelings that I have hurt or offensive things that have been perceived offensive or were offensive that I have said that weren't intended. But I am here in support of the Hawk venue. I am also here in support of new people that have moved into our community, as I am a realtor and keenly aware that I am part of that. The new people have brought new life into our community, keeping our main streets alive, creating new jobs with construction and tax dollars from their homes to allow for more improvements to things like county roads. I believe in my heart that thoughtful consideration can and will occur between the old and the new people in this neighborhood. I also believe that instead of shutting gates, we should be mending fences. I was 10 years old when I first lived my entire summers at my grandparents' home on Missouri Flats. Just a few miles away from the Hawks, I often had to walk up there in the summers to train my horse. There was a roping arena on the property at that time. In the years to follow, there would be a roping arena where the wedding venue is proposed now, with large horse trailers that arrived on the weekends, with dust and roping events carrying on throughout the day. My daughter was often in attendance there. Things have changed, but people haven't. We get passionate about things, we get upset about things. Sometimes we can't see perspectives from other people's points of view. Crawford has always had an old timers and newcomers event. For many, many years, it's been ongoing. A perfect example of true community, of blending and understanding of how important new, fresh people in a community can be. I've lived in Crawford through many changes where it was literally like a ghost town and there were no children. We're fighting to keep our schools open. Any kind of prosperity is important. I appreciate you here tonight and what an important job you're doing. I know that no matter what I say, people are going to be upset. But I have experience in the restaurant and hotel industry for 25 years before I became a realtor. I also did some research surrounding other properties near wedding venues. And while I know that the people that I have enraged will never use me as their realtor again, even though I might have been their realtor when they purchased property around the Hawks property, I will tell you that their property values, in my professional opinion, as the #1 selling realtor in Delta County since 2004. And the research that I have done, their property values will not be diminished. And I thank you for your consideration.
Orrin Paget.
Orrin Paget. My wife Lisa and I live at 4900 4300 Road. We're approximately 300 yards from the event venue. Wanted to pass a few photos here just to show our home in relation to the event venue. Lisa and I realized our dream when we purchased our home and property 5 years ago. We chose this area for the serenity, natural beauty, and abundant wildlife, and we feel absolutely blessed to live where we do. We moved here to escape noise, traffic, and loud neighbors. Now, we're concerned that the Hawks venue brings those irritants we escaped back into our lives. I'd like to take this opportunity to address noise and traffic. The Hawks aren't seeking approval for just an indoor venue, but they've requested to be able to have an outdoor dancing and music till 10 p.m. with other activities going on inside the facility past midnight on the weekends and until 11 p.m. on weekdays. We think that these hours are quite excessive and are not consistent with other event venues in the county and definitely are not consistent with activities and noise levels of the neighborhood. Since the barn already exists, we believe it actually provides the planning division staff, this commission, the Hawks, and the neighbors with a unique opportunity. How about conducting a trial run to determine the impact of noise generated from outdoor music? Pick an afternoon, set up the speakers on their dance floor, and play music at levels typical of a wedding reception. Then planning staff could record decibel measurements at various locations at the property lines and at neighboring homes. Neighbors can sit on their own porches and report what they hear, if anything. And you're certainly welcome to come to my home and see what impact this may or may not have on us. I'm guessing that most of us don't have a true sense of what the state limits of 55 and 60 decibels sounds like. And this would provide everyone with a true sense of the noise impacts. This may show the neighbors that noise impacts will be negligible
it may show the Hawks how high they can turn up the speakers, or it may show them that 55 and 60 decibels isn't attainable for their outdoor plans, and that they would need to move all music and PA system activities indoors. I would think that the Hawks would welcome this information prior to them booking events. And most importantly, a trial run would provide the Planning Commission with real data before making your decision. We don't want to kill the Hawks dream, but we don't want this project to kill our dream either. Thank you.
Great, we are done with that, done with that. Is there another John that would like to speak?
There's a Johanna. I think skipped John.
Maybe, so I cannot read it at all. Oh, I see,
put it
yes.
right below.
Oh, yeah, I see you signed. I could, yes. Please go ahead, Johanna.
I'm Johanna Etter. I live at 12348 Slate Point Road, Paonia. My husband and I have lived in the valley for 17 years, raised our family, and I've known Amber for quite a while. She's our hygienist, and we've just created a good relationship. And she's helped me along the way. I started a cut flower business. I'm a florist. And she's been very supportive. And along the way, when she was starting to do the Hawk Barn, she passed my name on to quite a few people, which has generated business for me this past spring season. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate the Hawks for that. We live right next to Zen Zen Gardens, which is Cindy Sorensen's place. And she started a wedding venue about 8 years ago. And it was a concern for us, the noise. We are right there, 5-minute walk, closer than it looks like on that. And to be honest, it has not been a problem at all. It's honestly been great. And it's funny how I think somebody had mentioned earlier about, it's your perspective. And you can get uptight and upset about things and make things a bigger deal than they are. And they're really not. We have 35 acres, we farm, we have a very agricultural lifestyle. We're at home a lot. And I just hope that you guys will really consider this. It's a great impact on our community and Delta County. Thank you.
You don't know. Tom Beckendorf?
Me?
All right.
Good job. I'm Tom Beckendorf. I live at 4804 4300 Road, Crawford. I'm approximately 1/2 mile from this proposed venue. I'm here today because I object to an event center being allowed to operate in our relatively peaceful and quiet Needle Rock community. My main objection concerns the noise that will be created from the event's outdoor music. The applicant's business plan states that they will have music outdoors until 10 p.m. And as far as I'm concerned, that's way too late for outdoor music. Even if the music is brought inside at 10, nothing has been said about outdoor crowd noise being limited to 10 p.m. I am therefore requesting the proposed hours of operation be limited to 10 p.m. instead of 12:30, and outdoor music be ended at 8 p.m. Sound carries a long way in the mountain air, as I can attest to from the sound of hammers and saws being used when the applicants were constructing the event center. I could actually hear hammers and the saws that they use. And you can't tell me a band outside is going to be quieter than that. Please consider reducing the times this event center will be allowed to stay open. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bryce Hester or Richard Lane?
Can we just be moved to the end? I apologize that.
Oh, well, and actually you checked, you don't want to speak, but you are the end.
Oh, okay,
So
well,
if you do want to speak, now's your time.
I think we have everything we need to say, so actually, I don't need to
Okay,
speak. I was
great.
just, sorry, I'm here on behalf of the Hawks, thank you.
And then is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak? We'll pull up the screen and I'll call out names. I'll give you a chance to unmute yourself if you'd like to say anything. I cannot. I can't see at all the names there. Ryan,
Yeah.
Ryan, if you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. My name is Ryan Callahan with Connerly and Callahan, a law firm out of Montrose, located at 1104 South Cascade Avenue. My office represents Dean Crystal and his LLC, which own parcels of property adjacent to or neighboring the Hawk parcel. The focus of my public comment on behalf of Mr. Crystal tonight is the Hawks' continued inability to provide proof of an adequate water source for their proposed venue under Chapter 5, Section 3 of the Land Use Code. Since the time of the Hawks' initial application for the proposed venue back in September of last year, they have recognized the water roadblocks to approval created by two factors. First, the prohibitions against hauling water to a cistern absent certain exceptions which don't apply to the Hawk parcel. And second, a plat restriction which cloaks the Hawk parcel and requires them to obtain a new water tap prior to any development on the land. Domestic water to the Hawk parcel is provided by Mad Dog Water Company, which precludes use of its taps for commercial purposes. This was the initial dead end for the Hawks. They then sought a variance to the cistern prohibition in front of the Board of Adjustments, which was denied. They then sought to vacate from their subdivision altogether in an effort to avoid the plat restriction in front of the county commissioners, which was denied namely because the board determined that the Hawks had benefited from the very subdivision they brought forth before the plat restriction in the first place. They then sought to shift the proposed venue entirely to an adjacent hayfield property, but they have since abandoned that separate application, which was also recently elevated by staff to a conditional use process. Now the Hawks move forward on their original application for the barn venue. However, their inability to establish an adequate water supply is equally as present as it was to begin with. In fact, now the Hawks propose two options for a domestic water supply, which ironically violate both the cistern prohibition and the plat restriction at the same time. They first submit that they could haul or pipe water from an exempt well located on their adjacent hayfield property. However, this option is silent on the subject of the plat restriction and how it will allow the Hawks to avoid obtaining a water tap thereunder. Further, if they opt to haul water from the exempt well location to a cistern on the barn venue, they'd be in violation of the cistern prohibition as that water would not emanate from an on-site water source. While Mr. Powers with the Division of Water may have expressed that the state would allow pulling water from a well on an adjacent parcel to the event venue, Delta County's land use code requires that the water source be on-site, which the adjacent hayfield parcel does not constitute. I believe the commission would be setting a new precedent that a separate parcel is considered on-site to a development simply because it's adjacent. We ask that the exempt well contingency provided by the Hawks be stricken from any recommendation for water that this commission may provide to the board in potential violation of the plat restriction requiring a water tap and the on-site cistern prohibition. As for the Hawks' proposed second option of obtaining a commercial water tap from Deutsche Domestic Water Company, this option is wrought with problems. First, the Hawk venue is not located along the DD Water Company pipeline. In fact, it's miles away. To address this conundrum, the Hawks have apparently secured an agreement in principle for an easement to access the DD water tap off of a relatively distant parcel of property owned by the Lindsay Trust, and then hauling the water to the cistern located on the barn parcel. The first
All
problem.
right, Ryan, we're at 3 minutes, so I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. I appreciate the time restriction. There's three issues to the problem created by the DD Water Company option. The first is that this is not on the water line and they're not a service provider within the area of the Hawk parcel. The idea that the service area of the DD Water Company is wherever they say it is not legally accurate in my opinion. Rather, the DD Water Company is strictly defined by its court-issued water ruling and decree. And for example, they're currently limited to against any commercial issuance of a tap other than one convenience store, two restroom convenience store located on the water line. And their parameters and their service area are strictly defined by their water court ruling and their referee. And Sean, I would like to submit from Thad Schroeder the water table that limits their commercial issuance of taps to one, and that convenience store in question, and together in the future, issuance of the water decree that defines their scope of services and the limits such as 150 residences and 10 or 12 others that they have.
I'm gonna cut you off. There's a few other people that want to speak and we're running long.
Can I just get confirmation from Sean that I can amend the record to reflect that?
Yes.
Sure, yes.
Okay, and I'll send those along to email Sean. And yeah, it's just Mr. Crystal's final position that the water restrictions related to the plat requiring a water tap in concert with the DD water preclusion.
Okay, thank you. Who's, is there a guest that would like to speak? You can unmute yourself. Sir, I see, I'm gonna get to everyone on Zoom and then I will open it back up to anyone that didn't get a chance to sign up on the sheet. Next one.
iPhone.
Someone on an iPhone, would you like to speak? No. All right. Management? No. Sarah. No. Melanie, unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. Okay. All right, with that, I'm gonna open it back up to the floor. If there's anyone that did not sign in on the sheet, we'll just go kind of front to back. Sir in the black, you can come up. Please introduce your name and your address.
CJ Cowie, and my address is 450 feet away from the barn, but for the record,
43-184.
Cottonwood Creek Road. So I'm one of those people that come from Arizona. My family homesteaded Basalt and El Jebel, right on the Roaring Fork River. And I've studied my family for 150 years and everything that they did over there. Then unfortunately, government and other people have come in and kind of squandered their dreams as well. And as a citizen who's going to be living there, I'm just grateful that you guys are going to put the road sealant on. I love that it's not going to be so dusty at my place, but at the end of the day, I think it's my standpoint that, life's about free enterprise. It's about being able to create a living, no matter if it's ranching, working from home. I know a lot of people do that. I work out of Liz's office when I'm up here and not at my place in Arizona. I think it's just, for me, my heart breaks for this community, for all the people that live here. I see everybody's side. I understand it. But it's so hard because, I live in a big city. I run a almost billion-dollar corporation. And it's so crazy to see people just get in such a rush and panties in a wad, I guess I would say. But I believe in free enterprise. I believe that, in the Hawks place, what they've done for me and my family has been incredible, and I'll support anything that they do. Even though I live at the bottom, I'm probably gonna hear the music, and I guarantee you there's gonna be some nights that there's gonna be a wedding party that has music that I'm gonna hate. Guarantee it, because there's certain genres I just don't like. But you know what? It's okay. I can shut my window and I'll go to bed. Or I'll take some sleep additives, whatever it takes. But I've been a part of some of the different celebrations up there in the field, and I thought, what an amazing place. When I renew my vows, I want to do it there. It's scenic. I sit on my patio every morning and I look at Needle Rock, and I'm so grateful for the place. I've been able to climb it. And I want to be a part of this community. I want to be able to do different things. And right now, I shop here, I dine here, I spend my money at all the local places. I know that when mining went out, it took a lot of people out. It took a lot of money out of the community. And we need these things to help build the community back up to be profitable and to, create ways for people to live. So I understand It's hard for me to watch the heartbreak of this community over all of this. It's just crazy. I mean, the stuff that I deal with, I try not to get shot driving to work. I live in Phoenix and I drive on the freeway and we're over here complaining about decibels. It's just unfathomable. But again, thank you guys for what you've built and helping my family. And I hope that the commissioners here will really take a good look at everything and see this as progress and it's what we need.
Thank you, CJ. Sir in the red hat.
My name is Larry Jensen. I'm a rancher in Crawford. My address is 3497 Stearman Lane. One of the responsibilities of the planning committee and of the county in general is to guarantee that the infrastructure that's available for any new venture, whether it be a development or a venue or anything else, is adequate to handle that particular operation. Not to bore you, but my background is I have a civil engineering degree from Colorado School of Mines. I personally supervise construction projects on Interstate 70, Interstate 80, Interstate I-15, 225, and I personally supervise the construction of the runways at the Denver airport. I'm concerned that there's some infrastructure that's currently in use that's inadequate for this venue. Cottonwood Road and Needle Rock Road will be the two accesses to this venue. Neither one of those roads would meet the new construction standards of Colorado State construction. If you tried to profilograph those roads, they would be horrible failures and are woefully short of the requirements for a profilograph. I'm worried that this venue is going to put opportunity for 100 cars going down a road that's inadequate. And I think the safety needs to be considered by the county. I find it hard. I've been told and listened to the Hawks and they've said that it's the county's responsibility to improve the roads. Why is it the county's responsibility to pay for it? As a taxpayer in Delta County, I don't understand why somebody developing a venue should think that they can get the proceeds from the venue and leave the cost to the taxpayers in the county. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, and I've heard that, and I think that's wrong. I'm really concerned that 6 months into this venue, there's going to be a car full at 12:30 at night of party goers go off Cottonwood Creek. There's going to be a fatality, and then there's going to be an uproar in Delta County. Why did the planning committee allow this venue to be put in place when the roads were inadequate? Okay, what's going to happen is there'll be a rush to improve those roads because of the public sentiment that's involved. So people that have been waiting for 20 years for road improvements will have to wait because the money will be siphoned off from those roads in order to facilitate improvement of the road, which should have been done before the venue was approved. I'm also concerned with a couple other insufficiencies. There is no hotels, there are no restaurants. So when people leave this venue, they have to drive 25 miles to go someplace. Now, if they've been buying alcohol from a vendor, then you've got those people on the road. And there's a lot of people that may feel concerned about the capability of those people driving at that time.
All right, I'm gonna ask you to wrap up since you're over time.
Okay? Fire support, health support, and a sheriff support. My son-in-law, my grandson-in-law is the deputy sheriff up in that area. He visits Crawford twice a week. Okay, if we have a venue up there at different times, the sheriff's department have to be enlarged to support them. Who's going to pay for that? I think there's a whole lot of things that this committee needs to consider because it's inadequate and it has to be paid to be improved in order for this venue to be safe. Thank you.
Brady?
Yeah.
My name is Brady Todd. I live at 4133 D Road, Crawford, Colorado. This is just sad in general, because I know most of these people in the room, or they know me, and they're all neighbors, and I like to be as good of a neighbor as possible, but sometimes it's hard. I've heard some concerns, with fire department, police, and, you know, if we shut down every one of these things, it has a possibility to improve any of these. We're never gonna get any better. We're just gonna stay stagnant. And I'm a father now. I have a 4-year-old son who attends the Crawford Montessori School. And this year I spent several evenings at meetings trying to figure out how to keep that open and what we can do to improve that in the community. And I think this venue bringing in money, it's definitely gonna hurt some neighbors. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I think the overall community that it's gonna reach and just generate some revenue to help schools, police departments, fire departments, and just local businesses and young families. I mean, there's a lot of older people here, which I was really happy to see the amount of young people that showed up to speak. Because it is hard in this county as a younger person to try and make it. And I think this would just be a great thing, you know, overall. There's gonna be some rough spots, but the greater good that it could bring, I believe, far outweighs the negative impact. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Gentleman in the blue shirt here.
My name's Ralph Clark. I live at 34102 B25 Road in Crawford. I do not live on Missouri Flats. I live on Fruitland Mesa. The Hawk family has been there for umpteen years, and they went through the Cocker family across the road from them, which has not been brought up tonight. Joe Cocker built the mansion right across the road from them, probably within 300 yards of where their venue is. Believe me, those roads have been tested for parties because they had parties up there, and a lot of them, and some of them lasted for a few days. I was the county road foreman back then in that area. There was never any real issues. I mean, I had a few complaints about dust, very little of that even. People were willing to put up with it. Daryl and Christie put up with all that went on over there with the parties, but not only that, since the Crystals have bought it, they have pretty much rebuilt the mansion. They put up with the trucks that haul up there, concrete, lumber, the men working up there. They've gone through that 3 or 4 times since that mansion was built. It's been rebuilt several times. And I'm just here to support the Hawk family. I think that's a valuable business that the county needs. And as you've been told, it's not just them, it's benefiting. It is benefiting Delta County. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yes, ma'am, in the white hat.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lori Mitchell and I live at 40881 Highway 133 in Paonia. My husband and I have Sage View Ranch and we've been operating a agritourism location for about the last 8 years. And I wanted to say a few things. First of all, I've met Daryl and Christie just over the last few months and have heard a lot of wonderful stories about the family and what they've done in this area. I feel compassion for everyone, for all of the neighbors, for everyone in what they're going through and for the perception of what's coming. I wanted to say, you know, with regard to the economic impact, when we first started our agritourism location, we heard from the community that what they wanted was to bring people to the valley, have them spend their money and go home, to help the locals, to help the local economy, the small businesses, and so on. So here in Delta County, for every person that comes to this valley, the economic impact is $162.53. So you multiply that by how many people the Hawks will bring. The Hawks have been doing weddings on their property for 20 years. It's a long time. And I know, when we have music and things like that, it can, either embrace or, like one gentleman said, the genre might not be what he prefers. But I think embracing those things, when I first moved here, we had a cattle drive come up and I was like, what is that noise? It started at like 6 a.m. and the cows were mooing and I couldn't believe it. I love this valley and all of its diversity and all that we offer. And while it can be a challenge sometimes, I am totally in support of this venue for the Hawks, for what they're leaving as a legacy and what they're bringing for this community. And I just ask you to support them. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak? All right, with that, I'm gonna close public comment. We're gonna open conversation between the planning commission members. There might be a couple other questions of staff. And after that, we'll entertain a motion to proceed with this application. Does anyone want to say anything about this before we start thinking about motions or conditions? Oh, David.
I think there's been a lot of comments here, and I kind of agree with everybody, to some extent. Just about any application that comes before us, the immediate neighbors are gonna be impacted one way or the other. On the other hand, I do think that, economically, you gotta look to the future, and I think, tourism is definitely a factor. I think that there is a benefit in this venue. In terms of the land use code, I've got a couple of concerns. The easy one here is I think we need to limit the hours, number 3. And I think to be consistent with the concerns of the neighbors, what we've considered in the past with these type of venues, I'm gonna suggest that hours of operation. Now, again, this one includes setup and tear down time. So, I would knock off at 11:30 on the weekends, Friday through Sunday. And 10 o'clock during the week, Monday through Thursday, and any music would be moved inside by 9. As far as the noise is concerned, I don't know if anybody's out there has tested or took some decibel reading, but we are just following the state statute. And that may be pretty quiet, really. But if somebody's gonna try and enforce that, it's gonna be important to do so. My big concern on the land use code, I think they meet the requirements of this water issue is concerning. The Dyche Domestic Water Company, that exception involves a service area. Well, nobody knows what their service area is. So are we in compliance there or not? I am concerned about trucking water to a commercial venue. That seems like you need a ton of storage. And I like the well issue. Is it on site? Is that an on-site water source when you have the adjacent? It's the same family, I understand, but is it separate parcels? Is that really on site? I think that's the better way to go with the well, pipeline delivering the water. Then you got a consistent source. So, And of course, the road bond, that doesn't seem to be in dispute, $11,000 to cover mag chloride once a year. I think that's gonna help the neighbors and everybody else involved as well. So I'd like to approve it with those exceptions.
I'd like to come with that.
Yeah, Todd.
So I've heard it mentioned a couple times now that this commission has set precedents, and obviously we had another event just 2 weeks ago. I believe that the precedents that we have set is that we have approved the hours of operation that they have asked for in their business plan. There's nothing in our land use code that dictates these hours of operation. I don't think it would be good for the planning commission from the county to prohibit somebody to their hours of operation. That's something that obviously they feel like there's potentially a clientele that's gonna wanna have an event past 10 o'clock, past 11 o'clock. There's nothing in our land use code that dictates that. We have set precedents by approving what applicants have asked for in their business plan. If the previous applicant would have asked for 12:30, I don't think there've been any grounds for us to say, no, you need to change that, if that's what you want to ask for. Now, it's a conditional use permit, so be careful what you ask for, because if you ask for 12:30 and you're there till 2:30, you're in violation of your conditional use permit. If you get 10:30 and you're there till 11:30, you're in violation. So I don't think we put that restriction on them. Obviously, they feel like they have a clientele that they want to attract to their event venue, and 12:30 is the hours that they've asked for. I think we give it to them.
Yes.
I'm right there in the middle. I think that we should limit the Sunday hours. I think it is a little bit unreasonable when you have work the next morning to possibly be wrapping up and driving out at 1 AM. I think that's a reasonable request that some of the neighbors had. Other than that, I do agree that, you know, weddings go on late. These kind of events they're gonna go on late, and with the music moved in at 10 PM. And with them needing to be off-site by 12:30, I think the music will probably wrap up and the people will be leaving before then. But I do think we should consider limiting the Sunday hours to 11 PM as well.
Lance, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I would echo David's comment. I understand Todd's comments too about the business plan and what they're asking for, but I think we have to consider the objections of some of the neighbors over the noise, and I think that I don't live up there, but I'm guessing that sound is gonna travel quite a distance too, so I would be in favor of the conditional use having sound, the music moved inside and gone by 9. I just think we have to be really careful that we're injecting our opinion into land use. And that's not what our responsibility is. Our responsibility is to take the land use code as it has been provided to us from our county commissioners and say, give us an opinion on enforcement of this document. Nobody cares about what our opinion is. I'd like to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Nobody cares. I think we have to be really careful. That's a very slippery slope for us to start injecting our opinions of what we think is reasonable into a land use code decision. But aren't we doing that if you're gonna change the hours on Sunday?
I agree. I don't think we should do that.
David wants to add?
Just because we don't have hours of operation in our code doesn't mean that we can't impose those conditions. I disagree there. I think we've heard from the neighbors, and there's a very real legitimate concern to limit some of the hours. And that's why I'm suggesting it. And I don't think just because we don't have it in the land use code, that people can come in here and request a conditional use permit and have unlimited hours. They could go 24 hours, but you're rat tail if they want to operate.
Maybe our land use coach put something in there.
Well, then you're gonna, yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I think
Yeah, I know. I agree.
it seems that Mrs. Hawk said that they would have some wiggle room on Sunday hours as well, so it's, if we can get new proposed hours for Sunday, it's accommodating the neighbors' concerns, And also seems like there may be some room to speak about that, and happy neighbors, happy life, you know, so I feel like, my opinion, but also, you know, if it's acceptable by the applicants, we could propose those as the new hours. Just to kind of touch on some of the concerns here, I mean, what else are we here for? And then also the other thing that I wanted to list out was the hard liquor server. I thought that was a great suggestion to have a tip certified server serving hard liquor. Most venues that, you know, when I was getting married that we looked into, you only do beer and wine. There's no hard liquor. And if there is going to be hard liquor, which it hasn't been explicitly removed from their capability to serve, I think it should be served by a properly certified person. So maybe I'd like to see something about that in the conditions as well. Those are my two main points. And then I'd also just like to add that I have a lot of compassion for the noise that the neighbors will be experiencing. But 35 days, 35 events is less than 10% of the year. And the benefit that this will bring to the community should outweigh that exponentially, so.
All right, Lane, do you have anything to add?
I don't have any problem with the hours that they requested. I'm sure that most people don't have such a delicate constitution that they can't afford to miss a couple hours of sleep once in a while. So I think their hours are reasonable. I don't have any problem with their water plan. And no, I don't have anything else to add.
Jacob.
Well, as far as hours, we do have precedent, you know, we set hours on concrete batch plants, like pretty high usage. That's kind of what we're here for conditional use permits, is to really kind of dive into the nitty gritty of how it fits into a neighborhood. I'm kind of with David on, I'm with you both. I think land use code needs to change. That won't happen in 4 years. But I think we do have it in our purview to restrict hours. I kind of had made a note of something in there. 10 AM to 9 PM kind of on along David's lines. And I would think we would change the weekend from Friday, Saturday, Sunday to Friday, Saturday to accommodate folks going to school on Mondays. That's the water. I still, you know, didn't hear anything else about the cut slope stability study. I did hear, you know, the civil engineer say there was concerns about some safety issues, but it sounds like historically there's been buildings there. So I guess if it hasn't slipped off the mesa yet, they're okay. I have concerns about the water. I do think Ryan's point, you know, what is on site. I remember, you know, when we were changing the land use code, we had such consternation about uses of cisterns. And I do think they don't, and the Board of Adjustments doesn't think that they fall under the exemption for use of a cistern. So I would personally, you know, condition that if they had water, it'd be piped. Because again, we plan for the future. So these guys are okay to haul water. They're okay to be on the premise. But when they sell it, what are the next folks gonna do? Say, oh, I gotta buy a venue and now I gotta go haul 5,000 gallons of water every 2 weeks. And so it's really just setting the venue up and the next landowners for success if we put in good infrastructure. So I don't exactly know what that looks like. I'd be happy to kind of discuss that I don't think we have agreement on the hours, but if we want to open up the water, where are we at on that? Are we okay with them hauling water?
No, I prefer that they have a pipe.
But from my understanding, the Dutch Water Company does not have a.
No, they don't. That's why it's pretty impractical.
Right.
I think for me, that
For the well.
comes down to the water issue in terms of looking at the land use code and what it has to say. And I don't think adjacent property is an on-site water source. I also am a little bit uncertain in the chapter 5, section 3B, number 3 cisterns. Under A, it says cisterns may be allowed when the following applies, 1, 2, and 3. This doesn't make it super clear whether all 3 conditions have to apply or one has to apply, and I kind of read it as all three need to apply, and number three is development consists of one dwelling unit and one ADU. That might be a question for the lawyer.
No, number one has or at the end of it.
No.
Oh, okay, I see. Uh-huh. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm not versed well enough in well use and how the kind of legal mechanism of transferring water from an adjacent well, whether it's piped or hauled, you know, say they pipe it. And then they sell one party sells the property. Sure, there might be an easement for access, but is there an easement for a certain number of gallons for?
No, I think there's. an
Yeah,
easement for
you
a
know,
pipeline. It's a pipeline.
yeah, an easement, they own the well, but it's on someone else's
You
property.
can have a well
Yeah.
off-site.
Yeah.
Or on the adjacent
Yeah.
land and still use the water. I don't think that's gonna be a problem, but again, some of this stuff is probably county attorney stuff.
But in this case, the purveyor has agreed to allow a cistern. So they meet the criteria.
But Mad Dog has not, which is their.
No, you're talking about the Deitch water.
Deitch water.
that You can buy a tap.
So that gets into the running with the service
Right.
area. in our-
And that's my.
Yeah, I would question that too. What, are we gonna allow a water company in Delta to say, sure, you can buy a tap and haul the water across the county?
That's the extreme example.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that'll happen in the next 10 years, but it might, if we're setting precedent for that, you know, water's precious and getting more, so I'm not sure. I think this service area is a sticky point. It sounds like Sean did some research and contacted some people about that, but I think that's a sticking point for me.
So the condition would have to be verification that the applicant's property is within the service area of Deitch Water.
Well, the suggested language is just that it's a provide evidence of adequate water supply.
And that, I guess,
But that's pretty broad. I guess we're not.
I guess that's
that.
then VOCC decides what's adequate.
I guess. Yeah. Pass it on to them. And
They're the ones that are paid to do the research.
Because, yeah, I don't think we can get that resolved.
Yeah.
I think it's. Yeah.
Yeah,
So then our condition as it sits for the water covers all of our concerns.
I guess we're passing it on to them. Cause we're not convinced one way or the other that it's inadequate. Are we?
I think it's adequate in terms of, you know, the number of gallons they can access and practicality, reasonably practical, but what kind of, I'm concerned about the precedent we're setting of, you know, water being truly accessible at the locations that we're encouraging development at.
Well.
Anyone wanna venture a motion of any sort or nail down these hours or?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the project 24-063 Hawk with conditions as presented in line department.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Bronis seconds the motion. Any discussion before we vote?
You think leave it as is?
I think we need to change the hours, but.
I agree with David.
You amend or vote on this.
We could,
We could amend, but I think
could move. to-
Commissioner Queen's presented the motion, because that's how he wants it to go.
Right.
We could,
The majority
Yeah.
of people feel like that needs to be changed and this will get struck
Yeah.
down, so.
Yeah.
I think we got first.
all right, let's take a vote on this motion to recommend approval with staff conditions, and no further.
I've got a question. Do we
Yeah.
need to, do we need to specify the road bond? Or that's not that, because that's what.
Oh.
In here.
Right.
So.
That's another issue. Do we leave it open for Board of County Commissioners to assign the value.
How about we just go with what transportation recommended or schedule?
That would.
I will move to
All right, Commissioner Queen is going to amend his motion.
approve project 24-063 Hawk with conditions as presented by planning department with one exception of including the road and bridges. Determination of the bond amount for the road bond,
County engineer.
county engineer.
I'll still second it.
Commissioner Brunner still seconds it. All right, I think with that, we will take a vote. All in favor? Say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Okay.
All right, motion fails. Two nays and four, or sorry, 2 yays, 4 nays. So I heard a few different numbers in terms of hours of operation. Do we wanna, I'm guessing that's gonna be the next motion. Do we wanna circle around that, or does anyone wanna take a stab at a motion with those hours specified?
I guess my input, I already put it there, but it's pretty much sticking that. I think that Sunday hours should be included in weekday hours. And the weekends, you should allow them, because they could throw private parties and blast their music on the weekends. I mean, if you don't have to get up for work in the morning, and granted, some people will, but it's the weekend, you know, but Sunday, most people have to get up and go to work on Monday or go to school on Monday. I think it's really reasonable to just lump that in with the weekdays and keep the weekends as is. It's a compromise on both parts.
All right,
That's my opinion there.
so that would be, just so we're clear.
Friday, Saturday would be 10 AM to 12:30 AM.
Okay, 10 to 12:30 on Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday through Thursday,
It's 11.
that's 10 to 11 PM.
Which I think to David's point, 11 is pretty late for a school teacher to
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
10
I-
PM.
My recommendation with hours of operation, 10 AM to 11:30 Friday and Saturday. 10 AM to 10 PM Sunday through Thursday. This includes setup and tear down. Music will be turned off or moved inside by 9 PM.
The business plan's out the window, David.
Yeah, agree with that, really.
I think it's impractical that anyone's gonna pick up their speakers and move inside at 9. And I'm not sure if it'll make all that amount of difference, but. I personally, I think I would definitely support the move Sunday to a weeknight thing
Keep the time.
and
until
keep the
12:30.
times. Yeah,
Okay. Then I would move to approve. What is the number on here?
Condition number 3.
Well, what's the
Oh.
project number?
04 dash.
24-063.
That one. Changing condition 3 to restrict hours of operation from 10 AM to 12:30 AM for Friday and Saturday. And 10 AM to 10 PM for Sunday through Thursday.
10 PM.
That's my motion. On a week. Also, on condition 1, we need to change that it was approved in 2025. I believe the plan was approved in 2024. If we pull up the conditions, I think that was just a typo. But that's in the future.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right, so Commissioner Gray has a motion on the table to approve, to recommend approval with staff conditions and the additional condition to set hours of operation Sunday through Thursday, 10 AM to 10 PM, Friday and Saturday to 10 AM to 12:30 AM. Is there a second?
Can I get clarification? You're still talking about the music turned off and.
Yeah.
More insight.
Going once,
I-
going twice.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Oh, great.
Before we vote, I just say it again. I think we all need to be aware that I believe we are setting a new precedence. That in a county that greatly needs added economic input, that as a planning department, we are going to put some type of restriction on business. And that is gonna communicate to potential people that wanna bring their businesses and their entrepreneurial spirit into this county, that maybe it's not the place to come. Maybe a neighboring county is the place to go where we already have happened right now. I just wanna make sure everybody knows that.
I think that is something to consider, and I think something to consider for future land use code amendments is this issue of hours of operation, whose purview it is, how we deal with that. But I do think that these are pretty reasonable times for an event venue, and being able to set these conditions does help us balance that desire to fit into a neighborhood or a community as much as possible with, you know, the desire to promote business.
Can I ask just one quick question? What, I think Mr. Merrick mentioned there's other venues that are along these lines of hours. Is there some along our lines of ours? My only concern is with those limitations, if you do get the group that's like, well, I can go till midnight at this one, I can only go to 10 at this one.
I think in general, what we have done, as Commissioner Queen mentioned, is that we have set business hours for these event type venues, kind of based on the business plan. So I think my interpretation of what we're trying to do here is kind of honor your business plan, but take neighborhood concerns into account of, okay, Sundays are actually really a weeknight, so.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know enough about other event venues, what their times are. Okay, there is a motion on the table. Any other discussion?
I wanna say also, the music's getting moved in at 10 PM. This is hours of operation, including takedown and off the property. So in my opinion, I'm leaning more towards approving as is rather than limiting them to 10 PM all the way, because they're already moving in the music at 10 PM. So I think 10 PM, as Todd is saying, you know, we've honored a lot of business plans in the past as they were presented, and because we've had neighborhood complaint, we're trying to compromise. And I think Sunday is that compromise, but changing the entire week to an hour earlier is maybe more of a compromise than we need, because they're already moving in the music at 10. So presumably the noise, which should be monitored already, is gonna be, you know, mitigated at 10 PM. And that's not including, and we're trying to now include tear down and off the property also by 9, which means that by the time it's getting dark, they would need to be turning off the music and taking everything down. So
On a weeknight.
on a weeknight,
Just music is quiet. And you don't tear down.
well, this is hours
The
of
motion
operation.
is hour- 10 PM.
True curveball in there, but I feel for folks that gotta get up early and not just the music, it's the tires, but we heard from a lot of folks.
So there's an option, Victoria, you could move to amend the motion, or you can vote how you wanna vote, and we can vote.
Just move to amend the motion that we are
To to keep the hours at
We
11
keep the
p.m.
hours at 11 PM through the weeknights and include Sunday as a weeknight. And honor
Okay,
the rest.
helping with Robert's rules, does Jacob have to approve that?
No,
No, it's just, someone needs to second Victoria's motion to amend the motion.
Yeah.
To Sunday through Thursday, operation hours 10 AM to 11 PM. Jacob's original motion was to change hours of operation from Sunday to Thursday from 10 AM to 10 PM. That's a change from the business plan. Victoria's motion to amend would be to return to the business plan's weekday hours of 10 AM to 11 PM, but still keep Sunday as a weekday.
But then Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday, 10 AM to 12:30 AM.
I would say that's better than where we're headed, so.
All right, the motion, Commissioner Gray's motion has been amended.
No, we gotta vote on them.
Oh, we're voting on the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment to the motion, say aye. Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, all opposed, say nay. 4 yeas, 1 nay. All right, now we can vote on the amended motion to approve with condition, or to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that we approve this application with staff conditions and the additional condition to change hours of operation Sunday through Thursday from 10 AM to 11 PM and Friday and Saturday from 10 AM to 12:30 AM. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed?
Nay.
2 nay. All right, with that, the application has been recommended to the Board of County Commissioners to consider. Anyone from the public who still opposes this project still has the ability to go before Board of County Commissioners to voice your concerns. Anyone in favor, same thing. If you heard about this through public mailing, you will receive another notice about that Board of County Commissioners meeting. Agendas for those meetings are released publicly. And I don't think there's probably a date set yet.
Scheduled Tuesday, August 3rd.
Okay, scheduled for Tuesday, August 3rd. Keep your ears open just in case that changes. Thank you so much for everyone that came out and spoke. Everyone was very eloquent, respectful, and within time restraints, so.
But Berg, I'll come on Sunday, you guys.
Tuesday, August 5th is the scheduled meeting for the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you so much, guys. And then Planning Commission, David, 1 second, we are going to, the rest of public can be dismissed. The Planning Commission needs to just, there is one staff issue that we need to address. Lane, we're not quite done. Okay. We had talked last time about scheduling. Hey, guys. We had talked last time about scheduling a work session to address some of the these broader issues that are coming up. Sean wanted to get that on the calendar. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Am I right on this?
I actually, didn't say the statement of this request for Mr. Callahan to strike the record. I think I understood what he was requesting exactly. He's asking me to strike the record in his statement to support both multiple sources. It's fine.
Okay.
I stand by that. I stand, it's in my report. I'm not gonna get back.
Maybe we can have Ryan is still on Zoom here. Can you clarify what you were asking to confirm that Mr. Gardner was going to strike something for the record?
Not strike, to supplement. the issue of the DD Water Company option was new as of the neighborhood meeting and the staff report. And so public comment didn't have an opportunity to address that particular mode of water. And in my research, I came across the water referee rulings on limitations and definition of surface area for DD Water Company. And so I just wanted to supplement the record through an email to Sean, which I've already sent, which would and just have that included in Board of County Commissioner considerations.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all. Sorry for running long. That's what we do.
Thank you.
All right, so there's just one remaining agenda item, which is to schedule a work session.
Yeah, that was a request at our last meeting, so we have an open slot on August 13th. That's that would work for everybody, and then I'd like to know what topics you'd like to discuss.
Sure. All right, so the 13th is our regular meeting and there's no applications for that week. Okay, I think that would be good. There's several things that have come up to discuss.
Before that, have the county commissioners considered a moratorium on these? So we can get better regs, so we're not just piecemealing these things? They did it with solar energy. We had
Right.
one, you know.
Right, they did natural medicine business.
Have
I
they-
talked about it with Robbie, but I haven't heard what the commissioners have to say about that.
Okay. So now we've got 3 under our belt and they're all different. Widely different.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, they've been under our belt since last year.
Right. You have more?
Not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there interest from the commission to suggest the Board of County Commissioners place a moratorium on event venues until we establish better regulations?
It's a good idea.
You know, if there was an idea that we could effectively come up with some new language and have it happen in an expedited manner, sure.
Yeah.
Maybe one consideration of a work session would be that we would come up with specific language to the Board of County Commissioner to suggest to the Board of County Commissioners and suggest that they put a moratorium on until they approve, specific language.
Well, cause to
But-
the applicant's point, it's unfair of him as a business owner, if there's an event center operating in this county that gets
Yeah.
to stay open till whenever.
Right,
Mhm.
competition.
And now we've got, and apparently our county commissioners are now changing our approvals to only 9 PM for the data center, is that correct?
No.
That's.
Is that what
reported in the
the-
paper?
Hmm.
And we know nothing about it.
9 PM.
That's what they reported in the paper, they wanted her to 9.
Who were talking about? An editorial in the paper?
Yeah, the report of the commissioner's approval for the Davis.
Oh, I think
So
that.
the reporting was probably an interpretation that David,
The one that we. Proc.
Proc.
There was something about 9 PM moving the music.
Music.
Moving it inside.
And he wanted to kick it back to 10 and they said no. And the neighbor, they keep the music inside at 9. That's where I was coming from, all this stuff, but.
There's gotta be a way that, obviously our land use code is kind of in its infancy. And there just has to be a way when these consistent things like, okay, event centers, hours of operation comes up every single time. Whether they're gonna have a liquor license comes up every single time.
I wonder if there could be a precedent in like what CDOT did with their wedding venue kind of
Like,
thing. They did a
guidance.
memo. They gave guidance on how to calculate, things. I don't know if something like that could be a way to not have to go through the whole land use code. But provide some parameters that can set, standards in another roundabout.
I'd also be interested in what neighboring counties do. Is there some research that could be done about kind of land use standards around event?
Yeah, I would say, regarding the prop, this was his third amendment to his project, so I think the commissioners were kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a done deal.
Montrose has a moratorium, do they not?
I think that
They
they
did it
no
one
longer
time.
allow in the agricultural.
Yeah, in the
And they-
bigger ag parks, they're not allowed.
They
to build.
restricted
Yeah.
it to the rural, industrial, commercial, whatever that kind of zone is that they have.
Many of them, so.
Because they were running into these issues.
Mhm.
And they were concerned about traffic and you put it on a, industrial commercial zone, which we don't have that.
We don't have a ton of
Yeah.
them.
So
Yeah.
maybe we need to have a meeting, we talk about specific portions of the land use code that we think, okay, this is something that keeps coming up, we need to work on this area, like obviously event centers would probably be one of those things, and coming up with some more specific code for them to, time, place and manner of an event center, and this is how we're going to allow this.
Yeah, it seems like there can be some specific regulations,
If we're gonna
like
do-
there are on other types of
If
businesses.
we're gonna do that, I think staff could pull stuff,
Mhm.
have the language from other,
Yeah.
nobody's dealt with this.
Yeah, would staff be able to do a little bit research on other county, if there are specific regulations surrounding events?
That's your new. Requirement. They're already in there.
But special events are different, they're a one-time thing.
How about if we say, change it, that this is for all of it.
Yeah,
This could be a really easy change.
That's true.
Because we have language in there, look under your special event categories, it dials it in. A lot of what you guys are saying is in there. Problem is the way it's written,
Just
very difficult to apply. But
And it does
it's a
say-
really good list,
It does say that those standards,
apply to events.
yeah.
So I would strongly recommend some research on the special event venues. When you consider wedding event venues and venues in general, there's actually a standard.
We don't
For
know,
events.
I haven't never dealt with a special event.
Yeah, but the standards are in there.
At the end of the standards
Well,
of
that's
special
because-
events, it says where a permit is required. So that's not a special, temporary special event. Where a permit is required, conditions may be applied in addition to the standards provided in the subsection.
Indicating they already apply.
You just don't have to.
You just gotta read it and figure out how you
But
want
they
to.
don't have hours. All they have are hours
Yeah.
for
Usually do it inside, I think.
amplified noise.
Yeah.
shall
Sure.
not operate outdoors.
would think potentially that regulations around event centers, event venues might be actually more restricted than a special event because it's an ongoing activity, so, anyways, I'd be curious to see what other counties say. Victoria.
I'll say, in some cases, it's gonna be a case-to-case basis where, maybe an event center's coming up in the ideal location and there's, neighbors that are not bothered by it and, to have strict regulations on it before we even get the applicant in front of us, it might be just too restrictive, unnecessarily restrictive, when we still have the option to be restrictive.
I don't necessarily think the land use code should dictate hours of operation that apply to everyone, but potentially something that says event venues, hours of operation can be determined by condition, or, that just kind of like give us a little bit more structure, a little bit more backing behind our somewhat willy-nilly.
Well, traditionally,
Attempt to
Mr. Merrick is
define?
completely correct. This is a conditional use permit. This is for you guys to put conditions, which includes hours, location,
Why do these
time.
people come and complain and we
That
don't,
is-
we don't care what you think?
That is a condition that is meant for conditional use permits.
Because if we were going to approve based on what neighbors thought, we would never approve anything.
No,
Nobody
but
in this
you can make-
county would ever do a damn thing.
No, we approved it, but we're gonna shorten the hours a bit because of the noise.
It is problematic to have differences though, when you're in the competitive marketplace. I mean, like he could totally lose business because he'll close down at 10.
What's the service area? There's gonna be different regulations within city limits or versus out, and every business is competing to some degree based on their contexts.
And I think the location matters a lot. If
Yeah.
you don't want any regulations, go find a location where you're not gonna, have as much complaining. So I think that's.
300 acres.
There's no such thing as that particular. The land
Like that's what we're here to do is put
All
our.
right, so it's like a work session. It would be good on event centers.
You'd like our department to do some research on this.
Let's see if there's comparable or some language we can work with from some folks that have already done the work.
Would there be any way to get the Board of County Commissioners comment on the on-site water stuff, cistern use? Obviously it might be kind of ex parte in relation to this. Maybe this is after they hear this. Would I be curious?
If this case, if this will be an issue,
Sure.
I read
Yeah.
it, they may get shut down.
I'm concerned about it too.
So maybe at least follow up with us on what their discussion
Other-
around that is, because it's always been kind of over.
Yeah, this will be very bad study before.
Particularly in the North Fork. That's what inhibits any development in the North Fork is water. There's not a lot of it.
Yeah, it does open up precedents, go take a water down to the water company. Whose service area is arbitrary, whatever they want to provide.
Okay, are there other work sessions? There are definitely some other things that have come up before. The event stuff has really been top of mind. Other work session issues that we wanna try to tackle. Probably not gonna get to everything in one work session, but
So I guess the one that keeps coming up in their neighborhood meetings and maybe
yeah.
providing some guidance
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
and what those are supposed to look like and what we should hear back. 'Cause feel
I
like
agree.
But I feel like they.
No consistency.
Yeah, and we don't.
Yeah,
I
I
think
almost
that-
feel like they're making people more upset.
Yeah, well, we've kind of messed up a little bit in the implementation of them. They are supposed to happen soon in the process. However, when they don't get lifted to a conditional use permit till later, then they happen later in the process. So we are trying to make that determination to elevate it sooner, and also for those that require it right up front at the time of receiving the application, we make an effort to make them aware that this is a requirement, to do it sooner than later before they builds up all this resistance to their application.
And then what's the process?
Do you get a report?
We get, or how do we get a little bit of a report that tells us basically what was discussed?
I think our code enforcement officer ought to attend those meetings and take copious notes to report back to us and what happened.
I thought the neighborhood meeting was just for them to get together and then the applicant can hear the concerns and maybe deal with them up front.
That's right. That's the intent. I mean, we get the public comments. We're gonna get the comments and you'll get them over the line without having to hear his report from the neighborhood meeting, but the intent is to just build a rapport between the applicant and the neighbors and they can work things out ahead of time. But
But
it's
we
not,
facilitate, that's the only thing I really do. If we're using a county building, or if we're, like, they were not the Maloney House, a representative there. If we do a Samuel Wade room, it's because we're facilitating a room. Those are the ones that I go to.
otherwise we're not.
Otherwise, we don't go.
My question is, what's the process, and obviously this kind of depends on when they have this. What's the process for the applicant to make some changes to their plan after a neighborhood meeting? Because we've kind of run into this sticky spot where it's like, well, this is the application before us, but you're telling us, oh, no, actually, we said we'd do this instead, or we talked about that and we're willing to change. What's the kind of like application of amendment process after a neighborhood meeting takes place?
That's a good question, Kate. I wish we could tell you, the applications kind of change and evolve over
Yeah.
time, and this feedback is provided. Or as people learn of the parameters that they're gonna be having to operate in. And we kind of accept those and try to get them all in ducks in a row before a public hearing, but even now, like. We get things at the last minute sometimes.
So I'm gonna, even as I start to say this, I'm starting to regret it already. I was very much in favor of as many events or activities or whatever on table to be limited from it as much as possible. To try to promote freedom to people to do what they want to do. However, if we're going to bump every event center to a conditional use permit. Do we need to consider just changing it to conditional use so that way when we have the neighborhood meeting at the very beginning?
Yeah.
Conversation about the change,
Would you like to reopen table 2E?
I mean, I have discretion and that's just pretty much my internal policy. I'm gonna get an event center, it's gonna go to conditional use. I mean, I can have that kind of discretion and I can cite a part in the code to back me on that.
Based on precedent.
Until there's a change. Yeah,
Ernie,
yeah.
hey, you can submit your comment, but it's not.
No hearing.
Any further.
Ever.
The limited notice is where we're getting.
And the dumbest thing,
Just the notice. Why are we getting just the notice and no public hearing?
Yeah. The BNCC hearing,
Yep.
the constituent time, just to let them know because they were sure they weren't gonna get the hearing. Yeah. And that's what I heard. That should just be still.
It's. Might be trying us on this event center. I imagine that'll take up a good amount of time. I think if everyone can think about other things that have come up for you, I know we've had a list going on at one time. But I do think we should try to squeeze in a work session here and there so we can kind of get to these things more regularly. That'd be great. And anyone that comes with language to suggest is bonus points or extra credit or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good place to start and maybe bring ideas of other things.
Well, the BOCC may have a list that they want us to dive into as well, so they did it a few years ago.
like I said, take a look at special event venue, just because honestly, if you do some changing, it really does mirror a lot of what you guys are talking. If we wanted to do a generalization.
Okay.
All right, well, with that, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
That was your department. I love more.
Right.
Will you also be
Right.
sending us the motion sheet and, because I was really lost with all the motions and votes and.